Toxic masculinity.
Biden plans largest tax hike in 30 years.
Yeah,
What
I
does
didn't
that
actually get a
mean?
chance to read this story, so I'm going to be just as fascinated as everyone. Let's see here. Biden reportedly planning largest tax hike in almost 30 years. Here are the details. This is from The Blaze, one of my favorite companies. Let's see here. President Joe Biden is reportedly planning the largest hike in federal taxes in almost 3 decades to fund a long-term economic recovery program to follow in the footsteps of the recently passed $1.9 trillion stimulus package. Oh, man. Okay, here we go. Unnamed sources confirmed the plans to Bloomberg News over the weekend, reportedly indicating that the major tax hike, the first since 1993, is expected to pay for key Biden administration initiatives such as infrastructure, climate, and expanded help for poorer Americans. But the sources said that the planned changes are not designed to fund only the key priorities of the administration. With the tax hike, Biden's team hopes to address what Democrats argue are inequities in the tax system itself. According to the Bloomberg report, the changes include, okay, well, of course, they want to tackle inequities because racism and all that stuff. I am so sick of the race thing. I am so sick of racism. This accusation of racism. I'm so sick of things like Oregon pay. I wish we never had to talk about racial stuff on the show ever again. That's what I wish. It's not going to happen because that's like our bread and butter, man. That's like all we talk. It's like half the stuff we talk about is racial crap. The Democrats are obsessed with it. We have to cover it. It drives me nuts. Anyway, let's see here. The changes include raising the corporate tax to 28% from 21%, paring back the tax preferences for so-called pass-through businesses, such as limited liability companies or partnerships. Not really sure what that means, but okay. I guess they're just saying that, like, they won't be quite so lenient on businesses that are like limited liability companies and partnerships. Raising the tax rate on individuals earning more than $400,000 a year, expanding the estate taxes reach, a higher capital gains tax for individuals earning at least $1 million annually. His whole outlook has always been that Americans believe tax policy needs to be fair, and he has viewed all of his policy options through that lens. Sarah Bianchi, a former Biden economic aide, told Bloomberg. That's why the focus is on addressing the equal treatment between work and wealth. First of all, this is not his tax plan. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. This is not his tax plan. This is the tax plan of whoever it is that's controlling him, his people, or the people that control him. The second thing that I think we need to address is the fact that this is a socialist mentality, right? This is a socialist idea. Redistribute wealth. And it sounds great. The problem with this kind of perception is the Robin Hood idea, right? Steal from the rich to give to the poor. That's the Robin Hood idea, right? But Robin Hood really didn't steal from the rich to give to the poor. That's what they say in the stories. But actually, if you read the stories and you know, Robin Hood was stealing from the government to give to the poor, because in those days the rich were the aristocracy, and the aristocracy were the government. So that the government was basically taking the taxes from the poor citizens. So they were essentially stealing the money from the citizenry, and so Robin Hood was just taking that money back. So actually, stealing from the rich to give to the poor isn't necessarily such a good idea, but stealing from the government to give to the poor, that's a much better idea.
There's a super chat from Lauren Smart.
Uh-huh.
The tax hikes are for Biden to have the citizens pay off China.
That's actually a very good point. I don't think they want you to think that, but inevitably that's probably where the money will go to some degree. Yeah, I mean, well, okay, there's a lot to. I don't want to go dig into exactly where our national debt is and you know who holds all the. But anyway, let's just that's a little bit too deep for this show. But I would say that to some degree she's right, and look, there is this idea that if we tax rich people, it'll be better for the country because we'll take the money from the top and we'll give it to the poor, and the poor will come up, and everybody will be a little bit more equal.
So
And
what's the point? You will have fewer jobs.
well, that's exactly the problem, right? So that's exactly the problem. So, but what happens when you do this? When you do this, is that actually this actually kind of brings everybody down a little bit, because when the rich people don't, because when you're taking money from the rich, right? If it's private citizens, then a lot of times you're taking money from job creators, right? People who own companies, people who have businesses, things like that. And they can't afford to hire as many people. They can't afford to pay people as well. And the economy kind of, contracts a little bit. So Republicans like to do this, just move everybody up, as opposed to taking from the rich and giving to the lower income people. There's not really
And
a
the
lot of
squeeze
poor people
middle
in America.
class.
Is squeeze everybody into the middle class.
Yeah.
That's the leftist idea, but the Republican idea is let rich people be rich, and just improve everybody's quality of life. That's kind of what Trump did during his administration. He just freed up businesses to make more money, freed up rich people to make more money, so they could pay everybody and make the economy work better. To me, that's a much more attractive idea, because then everybody makes more money. If you take from the rich and give to the poor will improve a little bit for a little bit of time. If you allow the capitalist system to flourish, everybody increases far more in a sustained way. So for like a longer period of time, much longer, infinitely long, as long as there's not like a disaster like COVID. Anyway, let me keep reading this a little bit more. Let's see here. Bloomberg cited an independent analysis of the plan conducted by the Tax Policy Center, excuse me, which asserted it would raise taxes on American citizens by $21 trillion over 10 years. Oh, joy. The group originally projected the plan would raise taxes by $4 trillion over a decade, but revised its forecast last November. Okay, so it's not $4 trillion. Well, that's nice. The plans are unsurprising, coming from the Biden administration and progressive Democrat lawmakers who have already shown a willingness to raise taxes to accomplish their policy goals. Democrats snuck $60 billion in tax hikes into the coronavirus relief bill, even as the country faces continued economic difficulty as a result of the pandemic. Okay, so you're not allowed to open a business, but you have to pay us $60 billion more. Democrats are truly unbelievable. However, despite falling in line with Biden's campaign promises and demands for progressive lawmakers, any major tax hikes may face an uphill battle in Congress. Tax hikes, especially if they result in a repeal of former President Trump's 2017 tax cuts, are a non-starter for Republicans. Likewise, moderate Democrats have shown some reluctance to the idea. The really good way of stopping something like this, I think, the best way of stopping some kind of disastrous legislation like this, is just to make it public, right? Just to make sure that people know that it's happening, because the more public it is, the more people are aware of it. Nobody's going to like it. Nobody's going to like hearing about it. Maybe welfare recipients will like hearing about it, but most people are going to say this is not good, especially if they are aware of the consequences. Anyway, I feel like you're getting bored with this story.
I'm just a little bit sleepy.
Yeah, we're both quite sleepy. If we seem a little drunk, it's because neither of us got any sleep last night. But Valeria, I was going to say something about you. What was it? Wife? I got to keep calling you wife so that people know, because people are confused as to who you are.
I think I'm getting darker.
You're getting darker?
Light is...
Oh, the light's going. I thought you were talking about becoming like Rachel Dolezal. I think I'm getting a tan. Yeah, true. The light's going a little bit, but all right. Let's move on to the next story, shall we? We got a few others that we want to get into here before.
Pope Francis, is it how you pronounce it?
Pope Francis, yeah.
Pope Francis, church won't bless gay couples.
Church won't bless gay couples. Now, this is quite a surprise coming from Pope Francis, because Pope Francis.
Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.